What's going on, everybody? John Arapola here with My MMA News, and we actually have a ghost that we can see on camera here. It's not Casper, but it is AJ Fletcher. He got a big win and earned a UFC contract on the opening Dana White Contender Series for the series, which is Season 5. He got a first-round KO win over Leonardo Damiani. AJ, how you doing, my man? Thank you so much for being here and talking about this victory here with us.
Yeah, man. Thank you for having me. It's been wild, man. It's been a dream, a dream come true. Whenever you first start the sport and all, that's just, that's how you picture it going. And to have, all the circumstances around it kind of line up how they did, being the first fight or the first episode of, when the contender came back and all, and getting it done in the first round, with a flying knee, and then having Dana, do his reaction and then, tell you it's going to be number one on Sports Center. And then that happened. It checks all the boxes. I couldn't ask for any more, for sure.
I say it has to definitely be a big dream come true. Like that's like a video game style thing, you could almost say, in a way that it happened the way that it did. Has it started to sink in now that you've got that UFC contract and you know that you've made it? I imagine this has to be such a big deal. Has it actually sunk in yet to you?
It's starting to a little bit. I'm finally making my way around to some of the paperwork and all. So going through that, you see your name on the stuff. You see UFC, you see Zuffa, you see Dana White's name and all that on there, and that kind of makes it real a little bit. And seeing the replay and stuff, obviously, it's starting to get there for sure. And you always know you're capable of things like that, and it's just you never assume that the best possible outcome is going to happen exactly. You're always prepared for the worst, right? So when it does happen like that and it comes out just the way you picture it up and just the way you draw it up, it's, I'm over the moon for sure.
I can only imagine. And now let's start breaking this fight down here a little bit. And as we said in the beginning there, it was a first round knockout, so there's not a super lot to dissect here. But I do want to ask you before we get into the actual finish itself, you were throwing a lot of leg kicks and you had a lot of success with those. I actually noticed Leonardo's leg was completely red and chopped up. Were those having effect on him, did you feel like?
Yeah, for sure. There was one moment where he kind of he switched stances just for a little bit right after, I think it was the third one. And we had an idea that my movement might be a little bit more than Leonardo's. So to kind of really capitalize on that and to kind of really emphasize that strength versus him, we had to chop him down early in the fight and make him a little bit less mobile than he already was. It was a big thing, and I definitely felt like he was landing his shots and all, but as the fight was progressing, I think the leg kicks were going to start doing more and more and more, and obviously setting other things up as well.
And now take us through this highlight reel finish then. What exactly did you see that led to that?
So I had been doing it right. I took him down, I guess about a minute or so before, and then shot in on a single leg against the cage a little bit before, or a little bit right after that. And then I started giving him some looks for a level change, and started maybe hinting that I was going to maybe shoot again. And then when I felt like he was maybe sitting on the shot waiting for me to shoot in on a double and sprawl out or get underhooks, I don't know. It's a movement pattern I have. It's a fake level change, and it's using that level change to load your flying knee up and coming up. And worst case scenario, you don't land it and you end up starting to wrestle, which is I don't mind being there. But knee landed flush, and then a couple punches after, and it's a good fight, man. It was.
So one of the fun things about my job, I guess, is I get to, in a way, play Monday morning quarterback, if you will. So if you watch the broadcast live, you would definitely not have picked up on this. I did pick up on it. When they were showing the intro into your fight, the film crew, you did that move for the film crew. You legit threw a flying knee for them to film. So has this been something you've drilled over and over and over and over again?
Yeah, man, I started drilling it, I would say probably 2 years ago. And it's just, like with anything, you get smoother at it. You figure out how to use it in more situations. You figure out, when to use it in a fight. I used it up against the cage where he can't really back up anymore. He's got to either go to the side or he's got to come forward. So knowing that, it was one I drilled, and then the situations I throw those on my teammates, but I don't bring the knee up. I just try to get the timing with it. I'm not, one of these dudes trying to throw flying knees and taking everybody's teeth out in training and all, but I've gotten some good work with it. And like you said, in the pre-fight videos, that's a normal part of my shadow boxing. I go through those systems of, okay, I'm going to go for a takedown. Okay, now I'm going to fake the takedown, do overhand. Okay, now fake takedown. Okay, now knee. I go through those systems, and for them to capture it on film, it was pretty cool. A little extra tidbit too, like right before the camera shifted off me in the octagon to Leonardo walking out, you can kind of hear it in the background, the ring kind of shake. But I did my little spinning kick, and then I did my little flying knee right after they cut off of me. So I did it in the octagon before it happened too.
Yeah, well, that was an amazing knockout there. It's going to be a highlight reel one for you. It's going to always be a part of the Contender Series highlight reels from now until the end of time, probably. So congrats on that. And now I want to ask you about one of the cool things with the Contender Series. I actually got honest truth here. Last year was the first time I ever really got into covering the Contender Series, and I had the reins again this year for MyMMANews of covering it again. And what they started doing this year was they have these live watch parties going on that they're able to show everyone that's watching the actual live stream of your family and friends at a viewing party. And your viewing party, I honestly think so far throughout the season, and as we're recording this, I think there's 3 episodes we're into right now, definitely the best one. Everybody went nuts. There's tables flipping, chairs flipping, beer, champagne, everything, everybody going crazy. What was that like when you got to watch that back and see all of your family and friends go insane like that for your win?
Welcome to Louisiana, baby. No, it was crazy to see, man. That was at a bar I used to work at, actually, in Tigerland in Baton Rouge. And one of my buddies owns it now. And, they threw together a watch party, and there was, a bunch of people I grew up with there, a bunch of people, I maybe played sports with or maybe trained with at some point. A lot of people ended up showing up, and, to see people show up, given all the circumstances that were going on around, power's out in a lot of places. People are, if they have little camps and stuff, maybe not in Baton Rouge, they've got to shore up their house. They've got to go shore up, the camp. They've got, work to be done when trees start falling. They've got, they got to make hurricane preparations and all that. So to see people, go out and support you in the midst of a hurricane and all the craziness that's going on, all the gas shortages, all the, supply shortages and all, it's wild to see. Like I still can't put that into words, what that support means, and them, taking that time. And then obviously to see the genuine reaction of just everybody being excited that, you've achieved your dream and now you're going to get to go on that next stage. You can't put words into it. I'm appreciative of it, and I'm just glad I have, that many people that support me around here.
Yeah, it was definitely a sight to be seen, that's for sure. Now, AJ, I do want to ask you about how active you've been the last 2 years. You have, let's see if I have this written down correctly, yes, 9 fights. You have 9 wins in the last 2 years. How exactly do you stay that active? Like, there's a hard enough time people getting in the octagon twice a year. You get inside of a cage 9 times in the last 2 years. That's insane.
Yeah, no, that's kind of how we've done it, really. If you look back at my record since I think it's 2018, my activity has been like towards the later, let's say mid to late parts of my amateur career, I started realizing that activity is, I don't know, it just gets you more comfortable with being in there. It's very, there's no direct feedback as to what needs to be tweaked in your game and in your training than a fight, right? And if you can make the fight, if you get out of it relatively unscathed, right, you're able to go throw yourself right back into that fire, provided you've taken the recovery time for training and all that. A big part of being active too, I feel like, is like my lifestyle. I'm not one of these guys that, ramps up for a fight camp and then, takes a month or 2 off and then, a month or 2 to get back into it and then gets ramped up. I have recovery sessions built into my training. Obviously, certain parts and certain intensities and certain things change with the frequency as a fight comes up or as a fight just happened. But my normal schedule and my whole life really is built around training and, doing things outside of training that get me better for fighting, whether it's running or yoga or recovery or, reading certain books or just being in the gym, coaching or taking classes or, just staying in the gym. I think that's a big part of, one, not making my body have to rebuild itself, always kind of keeping it revved at, 70%. Obviously, we peak on fight week and we get it up to 100, but then keeping that engine running around 60 to 70% the whole time, it's exhausting. It's a grind, but I feel like it's the way to do this sport. If you've got to be 100% in, right? And that's my way of catching up to a lot of the competition that maybe I'm younger than, and that's my way of staying ahead of a lot of the competition that I feel like I'm around and that are around my age and maybe even a couple years older than me. So that's what we do.
So a lot going on there in that answer. You talked a lot of recovery, different training methods, yoga. The one thing I took away from that was reading. So I am somebody that is not an avid reader at all, but I'm actually a huge Green Bay Packers fan. And Aaron Rodgers mentions all the time about how much he reads and how beneficial it is to an athlete. What are some of the benefits you get out of reading? Like, is there a certain, first off, I guess, is there a certain genre that you like to read? And then what are the benefits of reading a book like that?
Okay, so I'll touch on the benefits first. So I noticed I went to school pretty much for I've been training for, 5 to 6 years now. I went to school for 5 of those years. And right after I graduated, there was maybe a 6 month period where I was just fed up with books, fed up with school. You go for, 22 years of your life or whatever. And you're like, all right, I just want to be done. Well, when I did that, I noticed like when I went to training and when I went to classes, the information I would retain I couldn't retain as much. I couldn't make those pictures and connect those dots in my head as easily as I could when I was working that mental muscle of being in school. So it was almost like this little aha moment of like, oh, just like my body, just like my muscles, I got to figure out a way to like train this thing so that I can keep learning, keep soaking up new techniques, keep evolving. And that kind of mental or that little realization just led me to change a lot of my habits I was doing outside of the gym to where now I'm a terrible artist, bro, but I think again, it's a good thing to do for your mind and a good place to put your brain to be in that creative space, especially when you do something like mixed martial arts. So I try to put myself in a position where I intake information that I think is valuable to me. And then I also try to put myself in a position where I write or I draw to where I'm putting out information too, or putting out something where my brain has to create. So I think it's very good for that. And those I think have benefits in fights and in training as well. In terms of what I read, it depends, right? So another one of the benefits of reading is you can frame especially if it's in the morning, you can frame your day and your thoughts, I would say, from what you read, right? It's a way of like gearing your mind up for certain things, whether you want to be relaxed or whether you want to be, if a fight's coming up, I'm reading like these war books or a Muhammad Ali book or Hickson Gracie's Breathe. If a fight's not coming up, it's more relaxing things. It's a retelling of the Greek myths. I have Into the Wild that I haven't started on just yet, but we're working on it. I have some other stuff that's a little bit more not like War of Art or Art of War and all that kind of stuff,
It's funny because you mentioned like I said, I never read it. I read two of those books. I read Into the Wild when I was in college, and I just read The Art of War recently because I'm a big Sopranos fan, and I know Tony Soprano read it in the show. Well, obviously he didn't actually read it because he's a TV character, but still I wanted to read the book, and that was a good read as well. I did want to ask you too. You were mentioning there how you were obviously used to reading from being in school. You were studying to be a doctor, correct? So how does one go from wanting to be a doctor, getting a biology degree, to becoming a fighter in the UFC?
Yeah, how does one go from wanting to put people back together to wanting to disassemble people, right? Crazy transition there. But I don't know, sports and physical contact sports I've always kind of loved since I was little. And the original plan, I would say, I would tell people that I wanted to do the pre-med route, but this might sound extreme or might sound stupid in some ways, but the pre-med route was almost like I knew what I wanted to do, right? I was going to school and training. Those are my two things. But in terms of what I really wanted to do, I wanted to make fighting the thing. Obviously when you're an early amateur, you go around and you be in circles where, the normal thing is go to college, get your degree and, go find a job or start your own business or whatever. You want to have something to relate to people to, right? So whenever people ask, yeah, what do you want to do? Oh, I'm gonna get my degree and, go be a doctor and stuff. And that really was a dream of mine for a really long time. But the further I got into my degree and the further I got into MMA, the more I realized that one, MMA is definitely what I wanted to do. And then two, the traditional doctor route really wasn't. The more I explored it and the more I kind of learned about it, it wasn't something that I really wanted to commit another part of my life to, I guess. Research started becoming more and more interesting to me, and more viable and more it started aligning more and more with what I think I want to do. But we'll see. But it was just kind of I knew I wanted to fight for sure, but if it didn't work out, I was like, oh, maybe I'll go, chase the degree and actually use it for something more than a weight cut.
Well, hey, it definitely worked itself out because now here you are, you're in the UFC, and now AJ's got two last things for you as we start to wrap things up. The first of which, I want to ask you this earlier. I know we kind of got sidetracked talking about reading and everything else, but we were talking about activity earlier and how active you've been. Since you're that active and now you have a UFC contract, does fight number 10 in the last 2 years occur in this calendar year inside of the UFC octagon?
I hope so, man. When this year started, I wanted to get into the UFC, and I wanted to have at least one fight before the year was done. There's a few months left, and I would like to stick to that. I'm hoping, I hope something comes up. I'm trying to get in on a few things before the end of the year. I'm sure everybody and their mom is trying to get on a few things too. So we'll see if they can make some space for me and throw me on a card. But yeah, I would absolutely love to get that 10th one in before December.
And then the last thing here then for you, obviously Lafayette, Louisiana is where you're from. Known for a lot of great fighters like Daniel Cormier and now most recently Dustin Poirier. You and Dustin have a very good connection. You guys have trained together a lot of times in the past. He even gave you a shout out on the broadcast for Dana White's Contender series. Just talk about Dustin a little bit and what you've learned from him over these years of knowing him and seeing him grow and evolve as a fighter.
Yeah, man, you get a lot of guys have talent, right? But it's tough people say the easy part is getting there and the tough part is staying there, right? I think when you look at somebody like Dustin, he's very down to earth, and that down to earthness allows him to, one, connect with people, and two, learn from people all the time. So if you're ever around him in a gym or if you're ever around him in general, one, he's just a really good dude. He's going to try to help you if he can. He's going to try to give you little bits of advice if you ask. And he's also going to be open, and he's going to see everybody as an opportunity to learn. He's open to conversation. He's open to listening to what you have to say. He's not one of these guys who, thinks they have it all figured out. He realizes he's just like you and he's just like me. And, he's done extraordinary things, but to see somebody who's that open and that receptive to knowledge and that down to earth, and to share the mats with him and get punched in the face by him. And, every once in a while have him slip on a pile of sweat and act like you got to take down. It's good to have somebody like that because, man, it makes all you're like, oh, wait, there's no like secret sauce. There's no like magic potions I've got to say. I don't have to be 7 feet tall or come from this place on earth. He's doing it. There's no reason that I can't do it too. And to have like somebody around you like that just crushes just by being themselves, just by being honest with the information and being receptive to new information. Whenever you're around somebody like that, it crushes all the excuses. I don't want to say it crushes all the doubts because those things are still there, right? That's more of an internal battle you have to find. But it crushes all the excuses as to why you couldn't do something, right? So I can't say, oh, you know what, I'm short for the weight class, can't do it. Oh, you know what, I got to, I took a couple losses as an amateur, I might not be able to make it. It's, when you're around somebody like that, dude, the world just seems everything's in your grasp in some ways,
Yeah, and Dustin's a great guy too. A lot of work with this foundation down there in Louisiana. Great guy to look up to. And AJ, real quick before you roll out here, if you want to plug your social media, if you have management or sponsors, family, friends, coaches, anybody you got to give a shout out to, please feel free to do so.
Yeah, so y'all can follow me on Instagram. I think it's AJ_Fletcher MMA. On Facebook, it should be AJ Fletcher MMA. On YouTube, it should be AJ Fletcher MMA. I think Twitter, I don't really do, so you probably can't find me on there. But any of the other ones, go ahead and look it up. Keep up with me. I got a couple little YouTube videos and stuff out there if y'all want to get to know me a little bit more. Other than that, in terms of thanking anybody, man, my team's been there the whole way. They've taken a lot of weekends away from their kids, a lot of time, away from families, a lot of grinding, late at night in the dark with me, nothing, nobody seeing it, nobody, it's not a lot of glory, right, when the work's getting done. But I've had a lot of guys who have helped me and a lot of guys that I think you'll start to see in the next couple of years. We've got a whole wave of talent coming in South Louisiana, and one, thank you to those guys, and then two, y'all get ready to see them in the next year. So they coming.
Well, there you guys have it. That was one of the newest fighters to make the UFC roster, AJ the Ghost Fletcher, fighting out of Lafayette, Louisiana. Looking forward to seeing what he does in the future with his bright UFC career just about to get started. Hopefully we'll see him fight for the 10th time in 2 years in just a few months here inside of the UFC octagon. And also, before I roll out, just want to remind you guys, if you like this interview that you watched here today, make sure you go to the bottom, hit the subscribe button if you didn't do so already. And also keep going to MyMMANews to see all the great content that comes out there, not only for myself, but for my colleagues as well. And we also have a great social media following, so make sure you check out our social media channels. And speaking of social media too, if you want to go and give me a follow on Instagram or Twitter at John Eric Poli. We'll see you later, everybody.